Joel, I'm not going to give you a massive introduction because I figured you could do that yourself. Everyone is muted pretty much. But what I will say about Joel, just a few brief words before I hand over, that expression they say, surround yourself with the 5 people that you want to be the average of. Well, Joel is in my 5. He's one of those 5, and he's had a huge influence and impact on the systems and structures that I implement for the way I work, for the way I live, but also the way I think. And I've always had some hugely impactful conversations with Joel. The work that he does out there in the world, which he can talk to you about in a second, is hugely impactful for so many others as well. And I cannot wait for you all to get stuck in over the next 75 minutes. So without any further ado, Joel, I'm going to hand over to you. You're going to be the host with the most. And I'm going to make your screen big. We've got a couple more entering. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. So, Joel, you should be host now.
Yep, I'll let people in as they come. There's a few more. Amazing, guys. So good to meet you all. I'm really excited for tonight. I won't give too much of an introduction, apart from my name's Joel, dad, husband, live in Madeira, high performance business and leadership coach, and love all things productivity, execution, fun, play, joy, flow, consciousness, exercise, lover of life, essentially. And I'm really excited to be talking through today. We're going to be diving into the topic of living by design. And I just want to kind of get a feel where everyone is from the outset. Just type into the chat, how would you rate yourself out of 10 for your ability to execute? Ability to execute. So taking an idea to execution, because really that's what today's about. Not productivity, but execution. There's a big difference. We've got 5, 6, and thanks for your honesty as well. 7. One rule, Glenn, no 7. No 7, Lawrence. No 7. 7's a cop-out. 7's a cop-out. So it's either 6 or 8. There's a little trick for you as well. We've got 6 down at 11. It's gone from 7 to 11. There you go. Okay, so it's sort of like middle of the road, a lot of 5s, a lot of 6s, an 8 in there. Amazing. We've got planner in there. Yeah. Amazing. I'd also love to get a feel from you. How do you feel when you hear that word structure? Do you feel like, oh, get away from me? That's not for me. I'm more in flow. Or do you get excited? How do you feel when you hear that word structure? Yeah, sounds, but love it, but hate to love it. Yeah, love it. Love structure. I like it. Love it. Enjoy it to a degree. Same, love it. I wonder if this is cognitive bias in play. All the people that love structure come to the session on structure. I wasn't expecting to see so many love it's. I suspect, Lawrence, all the people that love the flow are at home. Yeah, just no interest in this. Get away from me, structure. But I'm sure they're the ones that need to watch this the most. And I do find there's kind of 2 camps. There's the perhaps type A, like everything planned out, overly organized, and then there's the go with the flow. And I was certainly in that camp A, perhaps too much, and I've had to relinquish some control. And I really believe there's this balance in the middle, and hopefully we'll find that. And I really want to say tonight, as you're listening, listen for insight rather than to agree or disagree, because what we tend to do is listen to agree or disagree. That's what I do. Oh, no, I don't do that. The problem with listening like that is that you miss the insight. You miss the aha moments. So just encouraging you to listen for insight, and also just encouraging you just to be okay with just taking one thing away. If you took one thing away from today, that could well be the one thing that leads to humongous growth further down the road. So just taking the pressure off to capture everything, one insight. And also, if something doesn't resonate with you, let it go. It's cool. Because there is no right way in this. There's no right way in productivity. There's no right way in systems. And sometimes I observe we can get so obsessed with the right way. I don't know, has anyone felt that feeling of like, I've got to do the meditation, then the ice baths, and then this, and then I've got to have all the systems lined up. And you can spend more energy actually trying to create all these systems and actually doing it. So one thing I'll be talking about today is actually less is more. And I'm a really big believer, and I've seen more and more as I grow in wisdom and knowledge in this space, is actually a lot of this, a lot of being an executor is about subtraction, not addition. So this isn't about adding more. This isn't about adding more routines, habits. This is about actually subtraction and focusing on fewer things. But the fewer things you do with full engagement, full presence, and you're all in. But yeah, there's going to be lots of that today. So yeah. So let's kind of get stuck in. I'd love to hear, actually, before we do that, just type into the chat, what is one thing you'd love to get away from today, just so I can try and plan and try and make sure that I've got a feel for where you're at and what your expectations and intentions are for today. So just type into the chat, what's something you would love to get away from today, your intention, what do you want from this evening's call, just so I can really get a feel of where you're at and what your wants are. But I'm interested to know if I'm doing structure right. Kieran, I'm just going to catch that. If I'm doing it right, there is no right. So let's just let go of that thought of there's a right way of doing this. There's literally no right way. And I really believe a lot of this is about finding your flow, your rhythm. I've talked to Lawrence about this a lot. It's about finding your rhythm, finding your flow. And it's all about testing and iteration, self-awareness. It's one of the biggest hacks in productivity is actually reflection and self-awareness. So the rhythm that I'm going to share with you tonight is a rhythm that really works for me. I've never felt so in rhythm with life at the moment. I feel so in flow. And it's the structure that's created that, but it's a lot of testing. You know, I use the idea of be a scientist for your life, not a researcher. There's so many researchers out there listening to all the podcasts, reading all the books, and taking lots of notes, but they're not actually testing any of it. I always thought this way, like test. Every 2 weeks, every month, every 12 weeks, whatever it is, test, always testing what works for you, because there is no right way. There's the way that feels in flow for you. And there'll be different periods of life as well. So hearing a different approach to managing life, new insights and ideas, maybe how to manage my time more productively, right or wrong approach. So yeah, we'll get rid of that right or wrong approach. I'm two extremes, a million miles an hour, crash and burn, so happy with balance. Beautiful. It's going to be a big message of tonight. So beautiful. So why listen? Why listen tonight? Well, without tonight, there's going to be a constant feeling of frustration and overwhelm. And as I've shared before, there tends to be two camps of people. There's the type A, likes to organize everything. And then there's the type two, the sort of the go with the flow. And I've certainly been more in the type A, and I've had to relinquish some control and actually go with the flow. But I also find talking to a lot of people in that second category, the people who go with the flow, they tend to be overwhelmed very easily. Because one of the most energy consuming thing our brain does is prioritize. So systems equal freedom in the mind. Systems are there to lean on. Systems are there to take away capacity and to make decisions for you. So The reason why I feel so in flow with life is because my systems do a lot of the work for me. There's no, what do I do today? What am I doing now? My systems do that for me. So without these systems that I'm going to share, or without the systems that you implement, there will be this constant feeling of overwhelm, this constant feeling of distraction. Concentration and focus are a superpower in today's society. And structure gives you that focus. And structure, it sounds like a paradox, but structure equals freedom. I really, really have seen that time and time again. Without today, we will have that classic jumping from one thing to the next. Has anyone been guilty of that? That sort of magpie syndrome? Yeah, I've certainly been there. And that just leaves you frustrated, right? Frustrated and like burnt out. We're going to be talking about today, getting rid of that kind of always on mentality and actually living in a different way where you're super focused and totally off. So my wants from today is to help you break away from that busyness, that always on, to being effective, being an executor. Anyone can be busy. The quote I'm going to paraphrase from Tim Ferriss, it says, any fool can be busy. And it's easy to be busy. Can you be effective? Because when you are, you realize you actually don't need to work that hard. Another want from today is to really start feeling in flow. Yeah, find your flow, find your rhythm. And in the result of that is more engagement. And I think this is something that I think we all want from life is more engagement, full engagement, to be really all in your life. And to have a feeling of agency, to have a feeling of you have a plan, you have something to work for, and you have agency on how to get there. So that's kind of my want from today. The mistakes I see a lot of people making in this journey is, yeah, it's just resisting systems, resisting structure. Also shiny object syndrome, jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. So let me tell you a little bit about my story before we get into the meaty stuff. So where shall I start? I'll start 2 years into my first business. So I founded a food tech business that I thought was going to change the world. I thought it was going to make me a billionaire. And that was really my main motivation of founding this business. I read the book, How to Build a $1 Billion App, and I thought I'd be a billionaire in a few years. Actually, what it did, it put me on this path of self-development. And the luckiest break for me was when I was on the Circle Line outside Sloane Square, or at Sloane Square. And I had this sudden compression on my chest. My throat started to close up. And I had this overwhelming feeling just to cry, to burst into tears. And I was sort of panicking, busy tube. I didn't know where to look. And I was trying to regulate myself. I had no idea how to regulate myself. So I had to run off the tube, and I found a bench and I bawled my eyes out. I had absolutely no idea what was happening. I told my team that I couldn't be in today, so I went home and I just cried all day, and I was a total mess. And the next few days, I was emotional roller coaster, panic attacks, throat closing up. I had no idea what was going on. So I had this thought, well, it's about managing my work. And I knew building a food tech startup, I just raised around £500,000 for the business. I knew that the amount of work that I had wouldn't change. So my approach to work had to change. So I dived into the world of productivity, and I dived into the world of mindset. And I started to build these systems and change my mindset around work and life. And I completely transformed my results, my approach to life, but also my contentment and my fulfillment. And as I shared, I found this rhythm, this flow. And it has been this journey of trying stuff, failing, trying stuff, failing, trying stuff, failing. And I've got to a point now where, and I say this not to brag or not to say, oh, how good am I? But to hopefully share that I've gone from total rock bottom, total mess, to the happiest, healthiest, most fulfilled and successful I've ever been in my life. And I put a large amount down to the systems that I'm about to share with you today. Because the systems are so holistic. And they're systems that I just lean on. James Clear, has anyone read the book Atomic Habits? Yeah, James Clear has an amazing quote that says, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. Systems do the heavy lifting. There's another amazing book I love called The War of Art. Has anyone read The War of Art? It's such a good book. There's also Turning Pro, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, two beautiful books. And in that book, he talks of the amateur and the pro. And before that breakdown, I was an amateur way of living. I had no systems, and I just kind of turned up when I felt like it. I'd turned up when I was motivated, and I would just rely on how I felt. And I don't know about you, but relying on your feelings is not a reliable way to live because we just don't know what's going to be thrown at us that day. Maybe it's a WhatsApp from our ex or Instagram post that triggers us. Or maybe it's just the fact that we didn't sleep that well last night. Or we ate too much last night and we feel a bit lethargic. Pros rely on how they feel. They rely on inspiration. They rely on motivation. Sorry, amateurs rely on how they feel. Pros rely on their systems. Amateurs rely on inspiration. When I feel inspired, then I'll take action. Pros act in anticipation of inspiration. So the journey for me in building these systems has been one of going from amateur to a pro. And if you read The War of Art, you'll realize the life of a pro is actually for the crazy. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's actually wildly uncomfortable. But it is so much fun. It's so fulfilling because it's about bringing out the best of us. It's about turning up when we don't feel like it. It's about leaning on the systems when we don't feel like it, when we're not feeling motivated. So yeah, I really encourage you to read that book. It's for me, it's one of my top 5 in terms of, life-changing books. Forgot to say also, if you have any questions in this, just come off mute. Totally cool with that. Come off mute and ask away. Totally fine with that. Or just type into the chat. So let's get into 6 big ideas. 6 big ideas. So the first big idea is that I want you to visualize Russian dolls. Russian dolls. Because one of the things to understand about being a pro, an executor, is understanding that there's internal and external motivation. And living by design is about knowing that, understanding that, and designing our life to bring out both the internal and the external. Now, the internal is an amazing driver. It's the one that carries us over the long haul. External is quite short-lived, but it's also very, very powerful. When we use both together, you will become an unstoppable force. But the Russian dolls is about internal motivation. And the reason why we have these sort of Russian dolls is about creating alignment. So a lot of how people do goals, the biggest mistake how people do goals is they start in the short run. They ask, where do I want to be in 12 weeks? I want to be, I want to lose 10 pounds in 12 weeks. Or I want a marathon in 12 weeks. Or I want to do this in 12 weeks. Or I want to get here in a year. Or I want to get here in 6 months. And guess what happens when we get there? I'm sure everyone's experienced that, right? You get shredded for summer, and then summer comes, and after summer, you you put the weight back straight back on. So we need to flip that round and start with the end in mind. That's the visualization. You start big and you get more granular. And we're going to be actually building out the system, and actually we're going to be taking action today on this, but it's all about starting big and getting more granular, because what that does, it fuels motivation. It fuels alignment in those moments that you don't want to work out, you don't want to exercise, you don't want to get out of bed. I used to be that get jacked for summer. My driver now is that I want to be able to play with my grandkids. I've got a 3-year-old. I want to play with her. I want to play football with her. I want to move with her. I want to be able to do anything with her when I'm 60, 70. I want to be able to kayak. I want to be able to paddleboard. I want to be able to surf. I want to be able to enjoy the juice of life. That's my end. That's my end goal. And when we work backwards from there, that fuels alignment, that fuels that internal drive. So we're going to be doing that today. We're going to be starting with the end in mind. And then we're going to be working back and getting more granular. And we're going to be getting so granular that it's like, what do I do right now? But when you see that connection to the bigger picture, it fuels the why. So we start with the end in mind. So I really want you to picture that Russian doll analogy. The second big idea, do we have any developers in the house, like tech developers, or anyone in product tech, building apps, websites? No. Okay, well, we'll go with this. So as I said, my first business was a food tech business. And in technology, in product development, they have this idea called lean methodologies. Has anyone heard of lean methodologies? Okay, the idea behind lean methodologies is rapid testing. And they have what we call 2-week sprints, where you have a limited things you focus on for 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, you have what we call a retrospective. You review the 2 weeks, and then you plan for the next 2 weeks and you go again. And this is really, really important to understand, because this is how we're going to be building out our next 12 weeks using this idea. So let me draw how it actually works. So in this, my daughter's been on my iPad. I have no idea what I come to when I get my iPad. So she's played with all settings, but there you go. So with the way you develop tech is you have what they call boards. And in these boards, you have like projects and tasks. They call them tickets. And the first board is called backlog. And you have all these tasks and tickets, essentially ideas for new product features, for improvements, UX, UI, and what have you. So that's the backlog. Now, most people live as they wake up and they have this to-do list, and they have this long list of to-do. And that was me. And I don't know about you, but it's pretty overwhelming coming to that to-do list. And you look at this long list of to-dos and you're like, my life just feels like a to-do list. I'm never getting anywhere. I'm ticking these things off and they're just more are added. Plus, when you look at this to-do list, you're like, oh, that one looks nice. I'll do that one. Oh, that one looks nice. Oh, yeah, I'll do that one. And you get to the end of the week and there's these 4 here that, oh, yeah, they don't look nice. They never get done. And then guess what? 4 weeks down the line, they're still not done. Does anyone resonate with this? Yeah. So what I'm about to show you is a way to break away from the to-do list. The to-do list, if there's, I'm going to say, I'm big for making big statements. So you'll hear that. But if there's one statement you get away from today is this, and I'm going to say that 4 or 5 more times tonight, I'm sure. I want you to break away from to-do lists. It's not a way to live. And I want you to try this new way of operating. So in tech, they have these boards. The first board is called a backlog. This is all the ideas of the things you could be working on. These are all the potential to-dos. The next board is called working on. And the next board is called working on now. And the next board is called waiting on. Oh, the next board is called done. So how this works is that at the start of the 2-week sprint, we ask ourselves, on this list of backlog, which is going to move me forward the most? Which of these is going to be the thing that moves the needle the most? And you're going to want to, you're all going to want to select all of them. But this is the first challenge of productivity, is realizing you can't do it all. And that's an amazing thing. Acknowledging your limitations is one of the biggest hacks in productivity. Acknowledging you can't do it all forces you to make hard decisions. And if you look at all the highest performers in the world, the most successful, the one thing they all have in common is they all do the highest leverage tasks. They all do the highest impact tasks. So that's what we ask. Which of these are the highest impact tasks? So we select them and we move them over. Oh, sorry. We move them over to, oh, this has worked terribly. Let's just ignore this. So we move them over to working on. So these are the tickets that we're going to focus on in this 2-week sprint. And the beauty is, when a new idea comes in, we don't just jump to it, we put it on a backlog. New ideas come on, we put it on our backlog, because we are only working on these tickets, these tasks, these projects in this 2-week sprint. And when we come to the day, we move them over again. So we just work on one thing at a time. So we move this over here. It's gone terribly wrong, but you get my picture. And if there's anything that we're waiting on, for example, we're waiting on someone to get back to us, we move it on to waiting on, which means there's only ever one thing that we're working on now. How nice is that? To look at your to-do list and you see one thing. How much space would that give your mind? And then when it's done, we move it on to done. And at the end of the week, we have this big long list of things we've done, and nothing in here. Nothing in the working on. Maybe we have a few things we're waiting on. So we can see how much we've got done in a week. And at the end of a sprint, we go back through our backlog and we go again. What's the biggest? What's the highest leverage task? What's the most important? What's going to have the biggest impact? What's the lowest effort? And we move it through the system. Oh, we move it through the system again. This is, for me, probably been one of the highest impact things on my effectiveness. Because I'm an ideas guy. Does anyone pride themselves on being an ideas guy or an ideas girl? Yeah. I'm great at generating ideas, and I used to have to jump to all of them. What I've found about it is actually half the ideas are rubbish. And the ideas that are good are still around in a week's time. They're still around in 2 weeks' time. And if you're still excited about them, if you still got juice for those ideas in 2 weeks or 2 months, then that's something to really go for, to really put time into. But if we just jump from idea to idea to idea, then we just get nowhere. Who has any questions on this, but also who resonates with this, who can see themselves implementing something like this? Yeah. And any questions, you can come off mute. A great app for this, by the way, is called Trello. Trello. So you can Trello, Trello, and you could just set up those boards. backlog, working on this week, working on now, waiting on, done. Really, really, really simple. I'm going to see if there's any questions. Yes, can see it working for me. Fit with Judith. How do you stop backlog from being overwhelming? Really great question. You used to see my backlog. It's a total mess. I would honestly say there's probably like 150 ideas in there. The thing I would encourage you, and actually, I don't know if this is one of my big ideas. So if it's not, no, it's not. So I'm really, really happy you asked me this question. I was toying with putting this big idea in. One of the big ideas that I was going to introduce was embrace mayhem. Embrace mayhem. I used to be someone who had to have everything like organized. I had to have all my emails answered. I had to have all my WhatsApps cleared off. I had to, have all my inbox at 0. I had to have everything clean. But I was a busy fool. I wasn't effective. I was doing all the shallow work, all the easy things, but I wasn't actually moving my life forward. And then I came across this idea of, I think it was from the book, The One Thing. And the idea was embrace mayhem. And what it means is when you are focusing on the one thing that's the most important thing, there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in the background. You can have emails flying in, you can have WhatsApps, you can have Instagram. You should see my email now. It's a total mess. Total mess. But I'm incredibly effective because I just embrace mayhem. I focus on the highest leverage tasks, and I know that there's all this mayhem. So my backlog is mayhem, and I'm embracing that. But I'm focusing on one thing at a time, and the things that I'm focusing in, I'm all in on. I'm totally focused. I'm all there. And then when it's done, cool. Then I look at my backlog. I might clean up my backlog. I might go, that was a rubbish idea. That was a rubbish idea. Oh, really? And then it's like, oh, that's the big idea. Okay, let's think about this. And then it's all in on that. Does that help, Judith? Beautiful. How do you stop other people from invading the doing now box? Yeah, really good question. I suppose it's about there's probably need some more context to that question, but I'm gonna, unless you want to add some more context to that question, but I suppose what comes up for me is being okay with saying no, like having boundaries, and being okay with saying no, which has probably been the hardest thing for me this last year. I've had a lot of awareness around being a people pleaser, and I've really learned to say no more recently and actually push back, and being okay with that. If it's out of your control, if you work for someone and you're given lots of things, in those moments, just saying, you can actually show them you're bored. You can say, absolutely, I can. Which would you like me to prioritize? Because right now I'm working on this. Which is more important? Without this, you go, well, this is my to-do list. And they're like, yeah, just chuck it on there. But when you have this clear board, you can clearly show them what you're working on. Okay, what's the priority here? Is it this or this? They go, actually, you're right. What you're working on is a priority. Cool, put it in your backlog, and I'll come to it in my next sprint. It's a really, really powerful way to actually show them what you're working on and get them to make the decision about what is the priority if you work for someone, for example. Cool, we've got a lot of, we can see it working for you. Amazing, beautiful. We're going to get into the actually executing this for your life soon, so really excited. So the next big idea is living life like a sprinter. They say life is a marathon, not a sprint. I actually think it's a series of sprints. And if you think about it, you look at a marathon runner, they're pretty gaunt, right? Perhaps a little skinny, a little unhealthy at times. You look at a sprinter, they're jacked, look healthy, they're muscular. Who would you want to go to war with? You'd pick the sprinter, right? Perhaps it would not if it's a long one, but you get my picture. And I see a lot of people living life like a marathon runner, where they're basically always half on or half, they're just neither in nor out. When they're chilling on the sofa, they're scrolling Instagram, which isn't fully off because your mind's still activating those moments. When you're at work, you're kind of at work, but you're also checking Instagram and you're checking WhatsApps and you're checking emails. When you're with your partner, you're kind of checking your phone. And like, I'm saying this like I'm perfect. I'm totally not perfect here. This is probably my biggest challenge as well. Totally my biggest challenge. But we want to try and break away from living life like a marathon run where we're kind of always half on. And we want to try and live like life like a sprinter. When we're on, we're all in. Totally, 100% all in. And when we're off, we're totally off. We are like so chilled, so zen, we're totally off. And that's how a sprinter trains for the Olympics, right? They take their rest just as important as their work. So I want you to try and think the same. And one of the rhythms that I've created is actually similar to how sprinters, how athletes train, is this 12 weeks. A lot of athletes have this 12 weeks periodization. And that's what I'm going to actually introduce today, is the idea of a 12-week year. Because let me ask you this, who here remembers their goals from the start of this year? Does anyone remember their goals at the start of this year? We got a hand up from Paul. We got one. Right? That says a lot. Because annualized thinking is dead. Progress surge, baby. That's it. Annualized thinking is dead. You know, you set a goal in Jan, and you're motivated for January, February, and then it's like, oh, December's a long way away. I can chill out. And then suddenly December rolls around, and then you suddenly like, oh, I've got to do this, this, and this, and then this surge. So you only kind of get 2 surges in the year. And if you run a sales team, you would have seen this. Like 3/4 or like 2/3 of the sales are done in like the last quarter. So what we want to do is actually create a little bit of that urgency 4 times in a year. So there's a book called The 12-Week Year, which I took this concept from. And I like to run my life in these 12-week sprints, where for 12 weeks, I focus on one goal for energy, work, and love. They're the 3 big areas of my life. And there's a quote by, I'm going to say Stephen Covey, it's not, but he just gets chucked loads of quotes, doesn't he? Like Einstein or... It says, if you have more than 3 priorities, you have no priorities. If you have more than 3 priorities, you have no priorities. So I have one goal for energy, work, and love for every 12 weeks. So for 12 weeks, I'm all in on those goals and those projects. And at the end of the 12 weeks, similar to that sprint with the tech, the product design, the product development, I take some time off, I reflect, I plan for the next 12 weeks, and I go again. And then when you live life like this, it's these periods of intense focus, 12 weeks of like all in, and then you're all off, like totally off. 2 weeks, 1 week, like no work, totally off, totally disengaged, recovering, plan for the next 12 weeks, go again. And it doesn't have to be 12 weeks. It can be 6 weeks, it can be 10 weeks. And I'm actually now more moving to 6 weeks. I'm finding a better rhythm in 6 weeks. And as I say, like you find your rhythm in this. But I want you to really try and think of, this living life like a sprinter. The last thing I'll say on this is these waves of all in, all off, there are macro waves and micro waves. So you've got the sort of the 12 weeks, but then also within your day, within your week, you have these waves of intense focus, intense recovery, intense focus, intense recovery, rather than just being half on, where you're just neither here nor there. Encouraging you to find these like periods of real intense focus and then totally off. So for example, for me, I wake up super early. I actually do like an hour and a half of like really intense focus. I go to the gym, then I have 2 hours completely off with my daughter, take her to nursery. Then I have a 3 hours of intense focus, and I have 1 or 2 hours off at lunch. So I have these periods of like all in, all off, all in, all off, all in, rather than neither here nor there. Just check in. Is this resonating with everyone, or any questions at this time? Beautiful. So I'm cautious of time. I tend to get a little overexcited in this. So I'm going to actually skip 2 of the big ideas. The next big idea is called Live by Design. It's essentially, we'll get to that. It's about designing your environment to be aligned with your inner world. The other big idea was 4,000 weeks. And has anyone read the book 4,000 Weeks? Yes. The idea behind this is just acknowledge your limitations. As I said before, you can't do it all. And that's great, because it forces you to make hard decisions. The more you say no, the harder it is, or the more requirement it is to say yes. So the more you say no, the harder it is to say yes. So the things that you say yes to, you're more engaged, you're more all in for. Whereas the opposite occurs when you say yes to everything. When you say yes to everything, the filter to say yes actually decreases. So you say yes and yes and yes to loads and loads of stuff. So then the filter to say yes isn't that high. So you're not actually that committed to the yes. So it actually spirals out of control, the complete opposite. This is why being effective is about subtraction. It's about doing less. But the things you do, you're all in for. You're totally focused. And you're giving your total presence, love, and affection and attention. So that's a great book, 4,000 Weeks. It really introduced me to the idea of finitude. You can't do it all. And it's a good thing. So we're going to get into action soon. But the last big idea is the idea of be, do, have. Be, do, have. Be, do, have. So most people think in the order of do, be. Once I have more money, then I'll take time off, then I'll be happier, then I'll do that thing, then I'll treat my partner. Once I have more confidence, then I'll do that, put my hand up in the meeting, then I'll do that talk, and then I'll do that. Once I have X, Y, Z, then I'll do. But if you've read The War of Art, you'll realize this is optimistic denial. It's actually fear in fancy dress. It's very easy to believe that thought of once I have, then I'll do, and then I'll be. But as long as we have that thought, we'll always be left with wanting the having. We'll never actually get to the having. As long as we have that thought, once I have, then I'll do, then I'll be, we will never do or be. And if you think about it, what you have right now is a result of who you are, your being, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your doing, your actions and your habits. It's really simple, but it's wildly profound, this concept. And I'm going to say it again. If there's one thing you take away from tonight's call, it's this. And I'm going to probably got 2 more of those in me. But I do think this. It's so powerful, this. And we're going to experience this right now. Once I have, people think once I have, then I'll do, then be. The order is we need to be first, then do, then the having is going to come. So the way to reverse engineer this is ask ourselves, how would I be if I already had what I wanted? What would I do if I already had what I wanted? And I would encourage you to constantly ask yourself that question, almost every day. How would I be if I had the success? I had the money, if I had the health? What would I do? You'll soon also realize that the stuff that you're waiting to do doesn't actually cost that much. Because when I ask people this question, like, How would you be if you had the £1 million you wanted? What would you do? And they say, oh, I'd spend more time in nature. You know, I'd go to the beach and I'd just sit and listen to the waves. I'd just be more relaxed, I'd be chilled, and I'd just be calmer. I'm like, you do know that stuff's all free. You don't need £1 million to do that. And actually, when you embody that before the having comes. This is the biggest hack for life. So who here is up for a little exercise, a little visualization? Yeah, amazing. So we're gonna start off by doing a little bit of breathing just to move some energy. And if you want to move your body now, you're more than welcome to as well. But I'm gonna share some music and we will get into a little exercise. Can you hear the music? Can you hear my voice over the music? Yeah, beautiful. Classic Gladiator. Can't do a visualization without Gladiator, huh? So the breathing, really simple. We're going to do 2 short inhales through our nose and out through our mouth. So it's going to go like this. Really simple. We're going to do probably 2 or 3 rounds of that. We do it with our eyes closed, and we're going to just allow what comes up. And I really encourage that word, allow. Don't try and force it. Don't get angry that you can't get to the visualization. Just allow whatever comes up. Sound good? Sound good. Okay. Right. So just encouraging you to find a comfortable seated position. Whenever you're ready, closing your eyes, bringing your awareness into your body. Just inviting a smile into your face. Just noticing how that makes you feel. Really grounding yourself into your body. We're going to start with that breathing. So 2 sharp inhales through your nose, then out through your mouth. We're going 3, 2, 1. Continue on that pace. Putting a little bit of energy into that breath. We're really just shifting the energy around your body right now. Inviting some passion, some power into that breath. Just bringing your breath back to its normal pace. Just noticing what you feel, if there's any energy vibrating. Do 1 more round of that breath, and this time just adding 20% more energy in both the inhale and the exhale. So we're going 3, 2, 1. Focusing on the breath. Keep that pace. Keep the energy moving. Keep going with that pace. We've got 10 more. Just bringing your breath back to its normal pace. Bringing your awareness now into your heart center. Sometimes it helps by just placing a hand on your heart. Just breathing into your heart. Perhaps even imagine your heart where your lungs, filtering your air, just really focusing all your attention on your heart. And taking a moment to feel gratitude for simply being here, for simply being alive, this wonderful body that we are gifted. Really allowing yourself to feel that gratitude. Perhaps even taking a moment to feel gratitude for your heart. It's an amazing thing. It keeps you alive. It's allowed you to experience all the things that you've experienced. It's got so much power. Take a moment to feel gratitude for your heart. Because with your heart, you're enough. You're perfect. You're unstoppable. Just inviting you now to bring someone that's close to you into your heart. Bring a moment with them that you felt true gratitude, presence, love, aliveness. Step into that moment as if it was right here, right now. See the sights, hear the sounds, smell the smells. Feel everything that you felt back then. And if a smile appears in your face from your heart, just allowing that smile, allowing whatever emotions. Really feeling that gratitude. Gifting your heart a second gift of gratitude now. Step into a moment where you felt alive, you felt purposeful, you felt vibrant. Perhaps it was a moment full of joy, full of laughter. Step into that moment again as if it was right here, right now. Feel everything you felt back then. That's it. And finally inviting all the people close to you into your heart. Bring their faces into your heart. Loved ones, family, friends, colleagues. Bring them into your heart. Feel their presence in your heart. And sending them this energy, this power from your heart. Just allowing your hands to return to your lap. I want you now to imagine walking to your front door from the inside, reaching out to open that door. And as you open the door, you see outside, down the road, your best future self. Your best future self living the life of your dreams. And as you step outside of the door and you walk closer to that person, to that version of you, you get to see how they're standing. You can see their physique, their body posture. You You can almost see and sense their energy, their charisma, their power. And as you walk around your best future self, you can hear what people are saying about that version of you. Just notice what people are saying. Allow yourself to hear that. And at some point you get so close to your best future self, you stand in, you step into that version of you, and it immediately hits you what it feels like to be you at your best, free from the limitations, free from the shackles of the mind. Allow yourself to feel what it's like to be your best future self. Notice the quality of your thoughts, your approach, your character, how you feel in this body. Noticing what you're excited for. What are you excited for in this day? What is it you're working towards? What projects are exciting you? Who are you spending your day with? How are you spending your mornings? How are you spending your afternoons? Your evenings? How do you feel? How are you talking to yourself? Just allowing yourself to really feel what it's like to be you at your best, free from the self-imposed limitations, the shackles of the mind, unencumbered. This is the real you. This is the real you. How would your life change if every day you embodied this version of you before the having? Because this version of you doesn't need anything. It's complete, it's whole. I'm just inviting you now to spend the rest of this song just journaling, writing whatever you want, no filter. We'll spend 2 minutes here, no worry about spelling or grammar. Just writing whatever came up for you, perhaps describing this best version of you. Thank you for playing with me there. Love to hear from you. How was that? Just invite you to share in the chat. Or you can come off mute and popcorn style share words into the space. So powerful, beautiful. Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah. How would life change if you were that version of you every day, or even 10% of that version of you every day? Interesting and powerful, beautiful. Lovely meditation. You're welcome. Beautiful. Yeah, and I'll share with Lawrence. I kind of more Tony Robbins' version of that. It was a very, very powerful experience. Love him or hate him. I did UPW a while ago, Tony Robbins, and he took me through a visualization exercise like that. And it's so powerful. But he has an amazing version on YouTube, which, if I'm ever feeling stuck, is my go-to. Yeah, beautiful, Tamsin. Unleashed, happier version of myself. Still me, but yeah, beautiful. And that's the crazy thing, right? Is that actually that this version of us is always inside of us. It's always available to us when we just get out of the head and really just embody being whole, embody us, our true self. Beautiful. The question is now, how do we actualize this version of us? It's all very nice having this experience, but how do we actually actualize this version of ourselves? And this is where my systems come in, and my 12-week year system. And I'm going to just share this document, and what I'll do is I'll share with Lawrence a kind of a workbook, if you will, that you can take from this. So this is the framework. And you remember earlier we had that Russian doll kind of framework where we start big and we get more granular. So this is an exercise that I do every 12 weeks. I do a visualization like that, often using the Tony Robbins one that I'm going to share with Lawrence. Using visualization like that, I get really clear about what's important to me, the values, as I can't remember who shared, but in that visualization, the values often come up. You realize actually it's so simple. It's family, it's health, it's nature, it's freedom. So start with the values. Then we get clear on the vision that we want to create. And then asking ourselves, if we had that vision now, who would we be? And that's the U 2.0. So, and again, I'll share with Lawrence the workbook here, but it's about asking ourselves, okay, what qualities does that person have? What attributes? What skills? How does that person talk to himself or herself? How does that person approach life, their character? That's the being. And then it's get into the doing. So we get clear about who we need to be, and then we get more granular. So we ask ourselves, okay, what are the goals that would help me get to my vision? So we brainstorm all the goals that would help me get to my vision. And I do that for energy, work, and love. So if I look at work, I'll brainstorm all the goals that I want to achieve that will help me get to my vision. I might have 10, 15 goals. And I ask myself, if I could only achieve one of these, which would have the biggest impact? Which would make all the other goals irrelevant? Then that becomes my one thing. That becomes the one thing that I'm focusing on for that whole year. That's the one goal. And then I do the same for the next 12 weeks. So I ask myself, what are all the goals that I would want to achieve in this next 12 weeks that would help me get closer to my 1 year goal, which would help me get closer to my vision? Then I ask myself, out of all these goals, if I only could achieve one of them, which would have the biggest impact, which would make all the others irrelevant? Then that becomes my goal for that 12 weeks. That becomes my focus. So when I go through my lean methodology prioritization, I ask myself, of which of these tasks will move me closer to this one goal for the next 12 weeks? And I go through that process, and that's how I prioritize. So you can start to see how this alignment is connected. I start big and I get more granular. I know that my 12-week year goal is going to get me to closer to my 1-year goal, which is going to get me closer to my vision. And I just prioritize based on that 12-week year goal. If something comes up, a new idea comes up, I park it. When I come to working my next thing, is this going to get me closer to my 12-week year goal? No, park it. Yes. Okay, this is my priority. And then getting more granular to that, I design my day and my week around that 12-week year goal. And I let go of everything else. This is about subtraction, not addition. So this is really, it may look complex, but it's wildly simple, this. When we really think about it, it's about thinking one thing today. What's the one thing that I need to focus on today that will get me closer to my 12-week year goal, which will get me closer to my 1-year goal, which will get me closer to my vision? The thing that stops people from this is impatience, distraction. But there's a quote that I really come to when I get impatient, and that is, we grossly overestimate what we can do in a year. It's usually underestimate what we can achieve in a decade. And I've seen this. When I'm really patient and focus on less, I move far quicker, I get more done, and I focus on more high leverage tasks, and I achieve more success, rather than trying to do lots of things, being really busy and actually getting nowhere. So this is about subtraction, making hard decisions of what to focus on in your trademark day, in your 12-week year, in your 1 year, on we go. I'm going to park it there, cautious of time, and I will come to questions. We'll have some any, and I'm willing to stay around for as long as you want. But I'm happy to answer any questions that people have on that, and I'll share the workbook that you can kind of go through that will help you through this process. And I have some final actions for you too as well.
Just again, Joel, thank you so much. And it just highlights the importance of clarity and purpose for me. And as you say, without having that, it's so hard to sort of know where that starting point is. And that it's been a while since I've done that exercise, visioning. We talk a lot about working towards our future best self, or our future best future self. And it was interesting, the vision that I had today had evolved. It was different. It's obviously moved further down the path since last time I did it, as I've grown. And it's almost a nice check-in as well, to repeat that exercise and to see how far you've come. We're always on a timeline towards that goal and vision. And I just love combining that clarity and awareness around the vision that we're growing into and evolving into all the time, with the concept you talked about just being all in. I love that expression of yours, to be all in. Whether you're all in interacting with an individual, professionally, or a family member, but to be fully all in, or whether you're all in with rest, it comes back to that power of presence again. It takes us out of that mental time travel. So this is less of a question, just a confirmation of thank you so much for reminding me about those key points. I'll pass it over to anyone else who's got any questions on this. Don't be shy. Mm-hmm. Well, and what you can do as well, if anyone does think of any questions that pop up in the coming days, as always, you can message me as well, and we can keep the conversation going. Of course, these are great touch points along the year. And this can really help to kind of shape your way of thinking for the coming days and weeks and months. Sometimes it takes a day or two of processing. So if anything comes up, please do message me.
Mm-hmm. I would say 2 actions to really implement this. And I've saw the questions. I'll come to that, Tamsin. 2 actions from this is, 1, to actually schedule in your 12-week year planning process for the next year. So I'd schedule in a day or half a day at the start of 2024. And then the start of quarter two, start of quarter three, start of quarter four. So actually schedule that in now, map that out now. And then they become your anchors, where you get really focused for the next 12 weeks. You go through this process, you start big, you work back, you start big, you work back, you start with big, you work back. So that's one action. The second action, and I would say, if there's one thing you take away from all of this, it's this. No, is to what I schedule in like a weekly planning session, what I call my weekly anchor. Again, they're anchors. So I do this on Friday before I close for the weekend, and that just allows me to be all in with my family. Sometimes do it on Sunday evening as well. But usually it's Friday, at the end of Friday, I'll plan out my next week. And what I do is I just go through that process of looking through my backlog, and I'll pick one thing to work on each day. So that's it. I just have one thing to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's it. And I'm all in on those one things. Of course, things come up and tasks come thrown at me, and I'll just make the call in the moment. Well, when I'm working on one thing, that's all I'm working on. But then I usually have space, like 1 hour here and there, where I'll ask myself, what's the priority? Is this or this? If it's not, I'll put it on my backlog. But that planning session, what I do with that is I schedule in the non-negotiables. So for me, that's time with my family, dropping my daughter off at nursery, exercise, a walk. Those are my non-negotiables, first in my calendar. And actually what that does, it actually gives you less time for work, which is great. It's really good because you actually, you look at my calendar, I'm like, amazing. I don't actually work that much, but I get a lot done because of that. A lot of people work the opposite way around. They schedule their work in and then go, well, where am I going to fit my work? I'm going to fit in this 30-minute workout here, and I'll fit in family time here, and I'll fit in. They try and fit their priorities around their work. So the key is not to prioritize your schedule. And this is a quote from Stephen Covey, not to prioritize your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. So on that Sunday planning, schedule your priorities first and be disciplined with that. They are the absolute most important thing, because that's how you get to the having. You be, then you do. So you schedule in the things that bring out the best in you. For me, family time, exercise, time in nature, nothing moves those things, nothing. Why? Because it brings out the best in me. And I know that's the most important, the being. And then I get to the work, the doing, and the having then comes. So those are the two actions, the quarterly, the 12-week year planning sessions, and the weekly planning sessions. If there's two highest leverage tasks, I would say it's those two. Do you focus on 3 things at a time, love, work, and energy, or do you choose one each 12 weeks? Yeah, so I try and have one for each. So one goal for energy, one goal for work, one goal for love. And that's just like, yeah, one goal for each essentially. So hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, and that's just what works for me. They feel like they encapsulate all of life. Judas put, what do you do when you have a number of different things you do and every day looks different and is disjointed? Yeah, I feel guilty for doing those things. Yeah, I hear you. I suppose one of the biggest skills I feel in being an executor and living a fully engaged life is compartmentalization. So being really like compartmentalized, like, and this comes back to the all-in methodology or the all-in mindset of like, right, I'm all in on this. I'm all in on family time. Okay, I'm all in on exercise. I'm all in on this, and just being really strict on that. So one thing that helps me there is just having little triggers, or like designing your environment so that when you go from one thing to the next, you kind of create these little moments of like separation. So for example, in COVID, during lockdown, it was very hard to have that separation. I was in a tiny little flat at the time. I was working, eating, watching TV in the same place. But what I did is I designed my environment to be different for each of those. And when I finish work, I'd actually say out loud, I'd switch my computer off. I wouldn't just close it, I'd actually switch it off. And I would shut my laptop and go, work complete. And it was just like registering, like, I'm done with work. It's now time to be all in with the family. And sometimes there was a point in my life where I'd drive to work and I'd just park outside my house, because I noticed that I brought a lot of my work into the family home. So I'd park outside of my house and I'd just have a little breath and I'd just recenter, try and let go of the day. And what helps me also is just sort of planning the next day when you finish your day's work. And then just, right. And then I have this moment before I open the door and I just say to myself, like, bring the love, bring the joy. And I open the door and then there I am. I'm a family man. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm all in. And I have these little triggers of just like, right, intentionality. Who do I want to be in this moment? Does that help, Judith? Beautiful.
Right. Well, I want to say, Joel, thank you so much. Yeah, that's been, incredibly powerful for me. It always is every time we speak. But I know that everyone would have got a huge deal of value from that. So remember, embodiment, we embody this, carry it forward, integration, embodiment. We have that clarity, that vision, we have purpose around it, and we embody it. That's what we're all about at LLC. So thank you so much, Joel. I want to thank you. I'll let everyone dash off because I know that you've got things to get to, but thank you so much for spending your evening with Joel and myself and Judith tonight. We really, really appreciate it. So have a lovely evening, everyone. I'll see you inside LLC very soon. And again, Joel, thank you so much, buddy. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time, all. Thanks for your intention. And speak to you very soon.
Thanks, everyone.